when it was installed, and that was probably 70 years ago at least. I don't have the exact date, but we've seen archival photos that would suggest that the bridge is probably 70 to 75 years old. The height was 12 foot 7 inches. And it's been that has been the issue since then, and fine for our standard vehicles and things like that to the city, but for semis, this has been a problem for many years.
Well, Lee, first of all, tell us about this bridge. And first, I want to start with where is it in the town of Delaware for people that
So
aren't familiar?
sure, Mark. So Delaware, Ohio. We're in Central Ohio. We're just north of Columbus, and um, in Delaware is you or Ohio 37, and it's on our west side. So US or Ohio 37, State Route 37 runs east and west through Delaware, and this is on the west side of Delaware as you're entering the city.
Okay. Now, this may seem obvious, but I think it's important to explain why this is a problem. What about the bridge makes it so that so many trucks hit it?
Well, when it was installed, and that was probably 70 years ago at least. I don't have the exact date, but we've seen archival photos that would suggest that the bridge is probably 70 to 75 years old. The height was 12 foot 7 inches. And it's been that has been the issue since then, and fine for our standard vehicles and things like that to the city, but for semis, this has been a problem for many years, and especially as Delaware's grown and US 37 has gotten busier, it's become more acute and something the city has had to deal with.
I'm curious about Highway 37. Um, is that a major artery or a major freight corridor?
Yes, it is, outside of the city. Um, Delaware is serviced by, we're like a lot of county seat cities, and that it's a kind of a coming together of various roadways. But in Delaware, we're serviced primarily east and west by US 36 and Ohio 37, and then US 23 runs north and south, kind of along the spine of the city. So it is busy. It services, to the west of here, Marysville, the Honda plant, um, and farther west, Indiana, and then east of the city, same way. So yeah, it is, Mark. It's active, um, and that's why there's we've signed this multiple places going miles outside of the location of the bridge. I think we have 7 signs with flashing lights in one direction and 6 signs with flashing lights in the other direction, warning that there is a 12-foot 7 bridge, at this location, and directing trucks where, this is where you need to turn. So, but it we can only do so much, and ultimately it comes down to the person behind the wheel, and so that's kind of been our struggle.
We've done stories on a number of bridges like this around the country. Davenport, Iowa has a pair of bridges on what used to be US 61. Here, where we're located in Kansas City, there's a bridge over what was US 24, and they actually moved the highway to try and cut back on the bridge strikes. But some of these get hit, every few months. Some of them get hit monthly. How often would you say your bridge is getting hit?
So before our latest iteration of signage, which was pretty robust and installed in 2018, we were averaging, I looked it up, probably between 10 and 12 a year. So about one a month around. It would vary. Maybe you'd have 8 or 9 one year, and 11 or 12 another. So in that 10, 11 ballpark. That's just the ones that struck the bridge and were so wedged that it required police assistance to extract them, our cleanup crews, and all that. Maybe a tow truck to get them out from underneath. There were other instances where a semi would maybe come up to the bridge, see there was an issue, slow down and try to go under it slowly and get wedged. And doesn't require as much cleanup or anything like that. And then there were the third category would be those that approach the bridge, see it, and then stop in time and then turn around, either with assistance from police or on their own. But to your question, between 10 and 12 a year. In 2018, we were approached by our state transportation organization, the Ohio Department of Transportation. They had funding for what we installed, and I don't know how widespread these are around the country, a laser detection device at 2 places east and west of the bridge that will, if activated, will trip a larger flashing sign that hangs over the roadway, and it's only activated when it's tripped. Since we've installed that, we have seen it has been effective. We haven't stopped it completely, but the number of strikes has gone down, and more importantly, the number of turnarounds has increased. So it's not foolproof, but it has been effective to where we're seeing between 6 and 8 a year instead of 10 to 12. And the turnarounds, we looked at a 12-month period. We had 60 documented instances where the vehicles, around 60, where they saw it, stopped, turned around. So, and that's just, Mark, that's just documented while during daylight, while we were on staff to have we're able to monitor that and get updates when the team is in the, wherever they control the traffic devices from. So, they're probably more than 60, but we were able to document around 60 turnarounds over the course of a year. So it has been effective, but it's not foolproof.
As I mentioned earlier, we've talked with people in other places that have what we've come to call truck eating bridges. And, sometimes the drivers are unfamiliar with the area. They don't know where they are. They're just following a GPS or a map.
Yep.
Sometimes, for example, in Davenport, Iowa, the bulk of the drivers getting caught were local. And in fact, the police chief there told me, I think, as I recall, that these are people that drove under it with their cars and they just, oh, that's right, I'm in a big truck now, I can't do this. Do you know what the case is with your bridge? Are these mainly unfamiliar drivers, or there a lot of locals that are getting caught?
That's a really good question, Mark. And it is important to point out that it's of course the big tractor trailers get all the eyeballs and the smartphone photos and video, but we're also seeing cases of people in renting a U-Haul or something like that, and not just when I get into something like that, I'm not used to that, but it's not something I always think about. Or motor coaches, these big motorhomes now with the air conditioners on the roof, taking the tops off of those. So we do see that. Anecdotally, I'm trying to think what our police have told me is more often than not, I just didn't see the signs. And again, we have 13 warning signs total, each with a flashing light and this big overhead, almost like a scoreboard over the roadway. Is there so much sign pollution out there that these are getting lost? Are there too many distractions in the cab that you're not seeing the signage? We don't know for sure, but that is what we hear the most, is we just didn't see it. Or they're just not familiar with the vehicle they're driving because it's a rental or something like that.
You mentioned all the countermeasures that you've taken, and it sounds like you've done quite a bit. Is the city considering more? And if so, what more do you think is needed to cut this back to zero or close to it?
Well, question that is asked a lot by our residents and our keyboard warriors on social media is just lower the road. If you just would lower the road or raise the bridge, you wouldn't have this problem. Well, just to lower the road is multi-million-dollar project. You're talking about, that's a major construction project on a state route. Where it's located in the city of Delaware would be a residential. It's in a residential area where it comes through the city as 2 lanes. We don't have the money for that. There's the, and then there's the, on top of that, there's all the drainage and, then you're working with the railroad to make sure they're okay with disturbing the base under their bridge. So it's something that gets tossed around every so often, but it isn't something that right now we have the money for as far as lowering it. Raising the bridge, again, you're working with the railroad. If you know the railroads at all, that's like, working at times with the IRS or something. I mean, it can be kind of overwhelming as far as the bureaucracy. So we do look at that, but it's just not realistic right now. Our city is struggling to keep up with capital projects, the roadway improvements, and it just doesn't seem like, to us, it seems like we need to do the best job we can to provide enough warning and hope that through efforts like this, reaching out directly to those drivers that might be coming to the city of Delaware with that kind of communication. So, I don't know, Mark. It's a good question of what else we could do. At this point, unless the railroad were to contact us tomorrow or Monday and say, hey, we need to replace that bridge, then we would say, all right, as long as you're doing that, here's what we're going to do, because any kind of bridge replacement would be on our dime, not on theirs.
One last thing I wanted to ask you, and this is what actually caught my attention initially about this. I was reading that the bridge is now showing up on Google Maps on their app as a historic site. Can you explain what happened there?
I wish I could. If you can explain Google, I don't know how, I don't know how it works. I don't know how that designation, we don't know how that designation, we saw it pop up on some local community social media, and everybody got a chuckle out of it, and some of the local media were interested in it. I don't know how that happened, but again, hey, as I said, if this helps get the word out, if this, then it's a good thing, great, and we support it. Every little thing helps. So it's just, this is just one of those things where we're kind of Delaware is an old city. We're challenged. We're an older city and we're a mature city in that we're 215 years old. So you got a lot of highway and roadway configurations that made sense 150 years ago or so that don't make any sense now. And then you're also a growing city and you have a lot of that traffic and growth and things like that. So it's very much a challenge, but it's kind of one of those quirky things. It's, part of Delaware lore now.
Well, Lee, thank you very much for all the information. I sure appreciate it.
And Mark, thanks for having us on again, and appreciate your efforts to get the word out, and we'll hope collectively it has an impact. No pun intended.